On the night Liang Jian and Zhao Lingyi planned to elope, I, as his fiancé, gave him travel expenses, filled with gratitude toward me. He and she slipped out of the city under the cover of darkness. What awaited them thereafter was a life of hardship and destitution. He would never again have the chance to wield the immense power he had in his previous life. The first thing I did after being reborn was to gather some travel money and, under the cover of night, went to the bamboo grove in the western part of the city. Handing it to Liang Jian, he showed a look of gratitude. Liang Jian and Zhao Lingyi eloped, watching their hurried retreating figures. It was as if I could see their wretched lives thereafter. A noble-born eldest son of a prestigious family willingly degraded himself, abandoning his status, position, wealth, and honor for a wandering female physician. The news spread without effort, becoming a laughingstock in Kyoto. Childhood sweethearts can't compete with a beauty from the heavens became a topic of amusement in tea houses and taverns, and I, the pitiful fiancé who was cruelly abandoned, became the subject of everyone's gossip. I shed tears on the spot, confirming the rumors. When his father came to our door, his face was filled with despair. The incident had left him humiliated. "It's our fault," he said with eyes full of grievance. I agreed softly. It was fate that kept us apart, not his fault. Then I turned and left gracefully. In a secluded spot, I allowed a faint smile to curve my lips. In this lifetime, I will let him have his way. Speaking of his connection with Zhao Lingyi, it truly is a beautiful tale. During his travels in the southern border region, he accidentally fell victim to snake venom and was saved by Zhao Lingyi. He disguised himself as a destitute young man who had been disowned by his family, claiming that he was not married. Naturally, he developed feelings for Zhao Lingyi over time, but he never mentioned that he had a fiancé with whom he had been engaged for many years. His family pressured him to get married, but he returned with Zhao Lingyi, determined to marry her and give her a proper status. The Liang family did not agree to allow a wandering female healer to join their household. He resorted to a hunger strike, but it had no effect. As our wedding date approached, he began to consider eloping. He was willing to abandon everything he had now and roam the world with her. In my previous life, upon learning this news, I followed the instructions of Liang's parents. When he came to return the betrothal gifts, I took the opportunity to get him drunk and brought him back to the Liang household. Zhao Lingyi arrived at the bamboo grove, mistakenly thinking he had broken his promise, and left in resentment, never to be seen again. From then on, he spent his days drowning his sorrows in wine, no longer the elegant and dignified young master of a noble family. If only I had been a little faster, I could have spent my life with her. His heart was filled with despair, and he complied with his family's wishes to marry me. After marriage, he focused solely on his career, accepting all the support I and my family provided him. But when he reached the pinnacle of power, he sent people across cities, crossed the seas, and traveled far, all just to find her trail. It was then that his true nature was revealed. All my years of plotting were for the sake of reaching the top, to find her and bring her back. So no one could stop me. For 7 full years, his obsession never faded. Instead, it became an inner demon. He kept me imprisoned in the backyard, feeding me a bowl of medicinal soup every day. As he watched my wretched state, he wiped his hands with a handkerchief and said nonchalantly, "Fu Qining, when Lingyi returns, you'll just need to make room for her." When Zhao Lingyi saw me lying on the bed on the verge of death, a trace of disdain flickered in her eyes as she tilted her head slightly. "All for nothing. Do you regret it?" In their earth-shattering love story, I was merely the insignificant first wife. She shouldn't have asked if I regretted it. She should have asked if I resented it. Resented this life where fate is not in one's hands. The Prime Minister of the time was entrusted with a critical mission by the late emperor, charged with supporting the young emperor, and thus wielded immense power in the court. The first wife passed away early, and he searched the world over to reunite with his youthful love, becoming a tale of romance, and I am that stumbling block, kicked aside by him without mercy. Heaven has given me a chance at rebirth, and this time, I can choose for myself. In my past life, I was wrong. I should not have stopped him from pursuing that lowly fate. This time, I choose to fulfill their love and respect their destiny. From now on, Enduring hardships and braving the elements will be part of their legendary love story too. Without the protection and support of his family, Liang Jian was just an ordinary person. The allowance I gave him, based on his usual spending habits, would probably only last about half a month. He had grown up in luxury, wearing clothes made from rare Yunjin silk worth 1,000 gold coins per bolt, and drinking the most prestigious West Lake Longjing tea daily to avoid drawing attention. He didn't take much wealth with him when he left home. Soon, Liang Jian would experience what it meant to live frugally and be short of money. He once told me, "This illustrious family background and vast wealth mean nothing to me. They cannot compare to the time I spent with Ling Yi in the small town of Nanjiang." He had only lived there for 3 short months, 3 months of ordinary life. He might have found it a novel and different experience, but 3 years or 30 years of struggling with financial worries, he might not have been able to endure. The Liang family did not send anyone to look for him. He and Zhao Lingyi traveled all the way and settled in Lancheng to make a living. Zhao Lingyi had to go out every day to treat patients. In the past, she had a sense of pride and refused to treat the wealthy, but now his expenses were too high, and Zhao Lingyi had to put aside her pride. As long as the payment was sufficient, she would take on the cases. Liang Jian also had a certain pride about him, and he naturally could not bring himself to rely on Zhao Lingyi for support. Back in the capital, his painting skills had always been praised and regarded as transcendent works of art. Even he, from such an arrogant noble family, resorted to selling calligraphy and paintings for a living, yet his works were picked apart and criticized without restraint in the marketplace. Once, people would spend a fortune for a single piece of his calligraphy. Now, common folk on the street say his paintings aren't worth even 20 coins. Perhaps at this moment, he was also pondering what he had left after leaving the Liang family on the day of Zhao Lingyi's birthday. Their first quarrel erupted. It was because Zhao Lingyi had gained the favor of a wealthy merchant's son during a consultation. On her birthday, the wealthy merchant's son sent her countless exquisite treasures and set off fireworks for 2 hours at the largest restaurant in Lan City. The entire city witnessed this grand spectacle. In fact, this scene had appeared in her previous life as well, but it happened only after Zhao Lingyi left the capital alone. That wealthy merchant's son was by her side, helping her relieve her depression and taking her to enjoy the mountains and rivers. But now that she had successfully eloped with Liang Jian, that wealthy merchant's son appeared a bit earlier. She watched the fireworks with a radiant smile, a scene that happened to be captured by Liang Jian, who had hurried over. He questioned Zhao Lingyi, "You once said you didn't care about my status, that whether I was a nobleman's son or a common peddler, your feelings wouldn't change, yet now, not long after, you despise my poverty and inability to provide you with a life of luxury, and you want to climb to a higher branch. Is that it?" As his words fell, he smashed the ceramic doll in his hand to the ground and turned to leave. Zhao Lingyi chased after him, and the two erupted into an argument in the small courtyard. No matter how Zhao Lingyi explained, he refused to believe that there was no entanglement between her and that wealthy young man. He used the money from selling his calligraphy and paintings to buy her a ceramic doll as a birthday gift, but compared to the silk, jewelry, and fireworks filling the sky, it seemed so meager and laughable. Wounding his pride, Zhao Lingyi's accusatory attitude left him even more disheartened. She blamed him for leaving early and returning late every day, no longer offering the patient companionship he once did. When she encountered difficulties during her medical practice, she had no one to confide her sorrows in. But Liang Jian coldly retorted, "If it weren't for you, how could I have fallen to such a state?" 3. When the news came back, I read it and burned the letter to ashes. This letter was sent from the Liang family. I knew about Liang Jian's movements earlier than they did. I set up a small feast to drink under the moonlight, surrounded by my close girlfriends. Miss Gu, feeling indignant on my behalf, couldn't help but sigh. Young Master Liang abandoned his family and gave up his status and position for a female doctor. He will surely regret it in the future. This incident can be seen as heaven helping you recognize his true character. Knowing he is not a good match, letting go early is indeed a blessing. I nodded in agreement and shared a drink with her. In reality, after he eloped with Zhao Lingyi, The Liang family originally intended to send guards to tie him back. It was my persuasion that convinced the Liang parents not to search for him. The more others try to stop him, the more he wants to prove that their love is as strong as gold and can withstand the world's judgment. It's better to let him be. Love is as ephemeral as clouds. Once tired, it will dissipate. Mr. and Mrs. Liang took my words to heart and let him face the consequences on his own. Now that they have sent this letter to me, it proves that what I said was right. Now, with no one to stop them, the two have become bitter enemies. The Lung family is probably already waiting for Lung Kaiyin to repent and beg for forgiveness. Mrs. Lung once came to my door herself, holding my hand and saying, "If one day he realizes his mistakes and returns, perhaps you two can resume your relationship." Facing her earnest gaze, I smiled but remained silent. What I want is for him to never return. The identity of a noble-born heir, once discarded by him, I never intended to let him reclaim so easily. I set up a porridge stall in the eastern part of the city, providing free porridge every day. The common folk all praise my kind-heartedness, and upon learning of my abandonment by my fiancé, they all rise to my defense. The scandal of the Liang family's heir eloping with someone has spread far and wide, but I set up the porridge stall with another purpose in mind. When I saw the birthmark on the arm of that dirty beggar child, I knew the person I was looking for had appeared. Her name was Luo Jinyang. She was at my feet, pulling at my clothes, begging me to save her mother. I spent a fortune to hire a doctor to treat her mother, and I even arranged a small courtyard outside for them to live in. Her mother's condition has improved, and she can now make a living by embroidering and starching clothes, without having to beg for a living. As for the silver she owed from previous medical treatments, I have also repaid it on her behalf. She said I am a rare kind-hearted person in this world. She is mistaken. I only help those who are of value to me. Perhaps she doesn't realize that she shouldn't be living this way, as Liang Jian has taken her place. Back then, the Liang family's concubine-born sons were born one after another, while the legitimate wife remained childless for a long time. After much difficulty, she finally conceived, but gave birth to a daughter. To make matters worse, she damaged her body during childbirth, making it very difficult for her to conceive again. She then took a desperate gamble. She replaced her own daughter with the son of a common family. Over the years, Liang Jian, as the only legitimate son of the Liang family, enjoyed immense wealth and luxury, yet he never knew that all of this was stolen from someone else's life. The one who should have been raised in luxury and honor was the young lady who had been swapped. Liang Jian was nothing but a complete counterfeit, a cuckoo occupying the magpie's nest. In his previous life, he learned the truth during an investigation, yet he chose to bury it. The woman named Luo Jinyang died at the hands of an assassin sent by Liang Jian. When Mrs. Liang learned of all this, she chose to cover it up for him, completely unconcerned about the life of her own daughter. This time, I will help her, and completely drive Liang Jian out of the Liang family. For Liang Jian returned earlier than I had imagined. The first thing he did upon returning was to come and see me. He had someone bring in a letter, and while the torrential rain poured outside, he stubbornly refused to leave unless he stood under the eaves. When I went out to meet him with an umbrella, his clothes were already soaked through by the heavy rain. Gone were the luxurious brocades of his usual attire. Today, he wore only a plain, unadorned long gown. "Why did you give me money for the journey back then?" His voice was low as he slowly finished the sentence. As if hoping I would take the initiative and give him a way out, I chuckled lightly. "I'm more curious to see how far you two can go without my interference. I'm quite looking forward to that outcome." At his words, his eyes filled with sorrow, as if he didn't want to bring it up again. In my previous life, he searched the world over and bestowed upon her unparalleled honor, even going so far as to poison me himself to pave the way for her. I thought this love could withstand the storms of the world, the doubts and suspicions. I never expected it to fall apart so quickly. He was obsessed with nothing more than Zhao Lingyi, the one he had sought but never obtained in his memories. Having obtained her, it was just SOSO. I know the reason he returned to the capital. He witnessed Zhao Lingyi crying on the shoulder of that wealthy young master. It turns out I was wrong. He spoke abruptly, his tone low. "Qining, would you still be willing to give me a chance?" He tentatively voiced the question. I spoke slowly. You shouldn't have asked that. From the moment you brought Zhao Lingyi back, you humiliated me. Your elopement with her made me the laughingstock of the world. Now that you're heartbroken with her, you turn to me. Am I so lowly that I must be your second choice? His eyes betrayed his panic. After a long pause, he stammered, I know I shouldn't expect you to easily return. I will do whatever it takes to satisfy you. He turned and left in the pouring rain. In the days that followed, he came to visit repeatedly. Everyone said he had turned over a new leaf, but I didn't want to see him, so I pretended to be ill and sent him away. However, his next move was truly shocking. At the foot of Xiangshan Temple, he knelt and prayed for me on each of the 9,900 steps, stubbornly making his way to the mountaintop on his knees. He knelt before the Buddha for 3 days, praying for my recovery, long-lasting happiness, and well-being. He made a vow before the shrine, hoping to form a good marriage with me and stay together until old age. My mother told me that he is a smart man, personally building the steps for me to walk toward him. He knew I was pretending to be sick to avoid him, and he also knew I cared about the loss of face from the past. So, he used this gesture to give me enough face, but I went to see Luo Jinyang. Some things could no longer be delayed. 5. Luo Jinyang has always been grateful to me and is always extremely humble when facing me, but she should have been the legitimate daughter of the Liang family, living a life of luxury and comfort, rather than wandering the streets, forced to worry about making a living. I took her hand and looked at the crescent-shaped birthmark on her arm. She followed me into the carriage, which stopped outside the Liang family's gate. From a distance, we saw Madame Liang leaving the house, her carriage luxurious, surrounded by a crowd of maids and servants. The words that followed would completely change her life. Do you know where this is? She looked at me with confusion and chuckled softly. The Liang family, such a prosperous and prominent clan, has stood strong for generations without decline. Their ancestors once had 7 marquises in a single generation. Of course I've heard of them, but someone as lowly as me would never dare to approach. This is your true home, she chuckled lightly, thinking I was just joking with her. The elegantly dressed lady from earlier is the matriarch of the Liang family and your birth mother. The crescent-shaped birthmark on your arm is the proof. The current legitimate son, Liang Jian, occupies the position that should have been yours. You were switched at birth. You can verify all of this with your current mother. She stood rooted to the spot, needing time to process such news. I escorted her back to the alley. As she got out of the car, she seemed somewhat disoriented, standing outside the house for a long time without stepping in. She was clever-minded, and the closer she got to the truth, the more timid she became. After returning home, the Liang family sent over many more gifts. I had my maid record and catalog them, storing them in the warehouse, as they would all be returned in the future. After descending from Fragrant Hills Temple, he handed me an amulet, saying that he had personally sought it. Knowing full well that I was just making an excuse, he didn't expose me but instead used the situation to play the prodigal son returning. Aware of my dislike for him, my mother arranged for me to meet other families. Today he is a young general, tomorrow he is the son of a minister. One small banquet after another is held at home, making it very lively. Mother said that the Fu family is also a prominent and noble clan, no less distinguished than the Liang family. The Fu family has produced many imperial tutors and prime ministers, a family of pure nobility, with disciples all over the world. The daughters of the Fu family need not suffer his grievances. Unexpectedly, at the flower viewing banquet hosted by the wife of the Earl of Changyuan, he actually avoided the crowd, cornered me against the wall, grabbed my shoulders, and threatened, Fu Qining, haven't I done enough? I even trampled on my own dignity to give you a way out, yet you insist on keeping up your airs and refusing to step down. What exactly do you want from me? I watched his disheveled appearance. His current self-control was less than a tenth of what it was in his previous life. He couldn't even keep up the act for a few days. I broke free from his grip, shook off his hand, and slowly said, do I have to take the step you've given me? When I broke off the engagement and brought Lingyi back, weren't you desperate? The money you gave me back then, wasn't it just to make me remember your kindness? Now that I've come back, don't overplay this game of catch and release. For me, a prodigal son returning is worthless. I slowed down my speech, letting the words fall slowly. His gaze froze, and his slightly raised hand also paused in mid-air. He did not understand why my infatuation with him had vanished overnight. After a long while, he maintained his posture and uttered a harsh warning. There aren't many families who dare to go against the Liang family. I understood the implication behind his words. As long as he refused to relent, other families might not risk offending the Liang family to form a marriage alliance with the Fu family. He wants to drag me down. 6. The families that had previously intended to form a marriage alliance with the Fu family gradually distanced themselves. I know it's him behind the scenes causing trouble. He wants to salvage this marriage, but only because it can bring him the greatest benefits. With the combined efforts of the Liang and Fu families, they will surely help him soar to great heights and reach the pinnacle of officialdom. To achieve this, he did not hesitate to humble himself and lower his posture to beg me to return, but when I coldly refused, he resorted to threats, truly his style. Just as he was reveling in the Liang family's immense influence, the third prince requested an imperial decree for marriage, openly seeking to marry me before the court. The emperor immediately granted the marriage between me and the third prince. I received the imperial decree with great calmness. An imperial marriage cannot be refused, and I never considered refusing it, but my mother took me inside and spoke to me at length. Royal marriages rarely find true love. I'm afraid your path ahead will be difficult. What path could be more rugged than the previous life? I held my mother's hand in return and said slowly, Mother, what I seek is not true affection. Why would I want his affection when the heart is fickle and true feelings are fleeting? The fate of all people has always been manipulated by the Supreme Being. In this lifetime, if I am to fight, I will fight for the highest position. The wedding date was set, and before that, I had never seen the third prince. Even in his previous life, he had always been stationed at the border and had never seen it. On our wedding night, he lifted the veil, looked into my eyes, his mouth curved in a smile, but his eyes revealed a calculating gaze. He exuded an aura of authority, unapologetically stating the reason for marrying me because of our family's background. The Fu family's disciples were spread across the land, wielding significant influence among the scholars of the world, and were deeply respected. He does not shy away from his ambitions, stating that as husband and wife, they are one, and his gaze is fixed on that highest position. He solemnly promised that if he ever ascends to a high position, he would grant me unparalleled honor and allow me to serve as the mother of the nation. With a faint smile, I handed him the ceremonial wedding wine in my hand. Your Highness will surely achieve your aspirations. My family and I will spare no effort to pave the way for you. Such words felt all too familiar. When Liang Jian needed my help and that of my family in his previous life, he would also speak gently and make empty promises. It was just empty promises. After all, who couldn't do that? He could, and so could I. Helping others seize power in my previous life was too exhausting. What could be more satisfying than having others help you seize power? In this lifetime, who uses whom remains to be seen. On the third day of the wedding, when I returned to my parents' home, the third prince personally accompanied me. He would not spare any respect or dignity that should be given. My mother asked privately, How does the third prince treat you? I only replied, Respect each other like guests. On the way back, he mentioned that there were foreign invasions at the border, and the emperor might order him to lead the troops to suppress them, but I stopped him. He couldn't go on this mission. He didn't understand why I insisted on stopping him, thinking I was being unreasonable. If your Highness insists on going, then when conflict arises in the future, the Fu family will stand aside. He seemed somewhat annoyed, but after weighing the options, he returned to his residence and began feigning illness. In the end, His Majesty dispatched the general of Huaihua to go. It was initially thought to be just a rebellion by the barbarian tribes, requiring only a slight suppression, but no one expected that the general of Huaihua would die there. The barbarian tribes excel in witchcraft, and their strange illnesses are difficult to cure. The news reached him, and the third prince broke out in a cold sweat in his residence. He embraced me, repeatedly sighing that I was his lucky star, and with me by his side, he would surely turn misfortune into fortune and overcome all difficulties. From then on, He trusted and relied on me even more. 7. Zhao Lingyi returned to find Liang Jian again, in order to clear up the misunderstanding, but Liang Jian had personally witnessed Zhao Lingyi sobbing into the shoulder of that wealthy young master, and it seemed to have hardened his heart this time. Without waiting for his parents to intervene, he personally ordered Zhao Lingyi to be driven away. The next time I encountered the two of them, it was the scene of them pulling and tugging at each other in the wine shop. Zhao Lingyi clutched at his sleeve, pleading desperately, begging him to listen to her explanation. Only impatience showed on his face. Yet the scenes flashing through my mind were all of his obsession with her in our past life. In comparison, it seemed somewhat laughable. Finally, Zhao Lingyi made a shocking statement. I am already carrying your child, 3 months along. Calculating the time, indeed, he was still in Lancheng. Back then when he saw me, Liang Jian's eyes flashed with embarrassment, and he ordered someone to pull Zhao Lingyi away. I was too lazy to watch their entanglement, but just as I was about to turn and leave, he lowered his voice and said, seeing me and her reach a point of mutual loathing, I suppose you must be pleased. I raised an eyebrow and replied, yes, those who betray their trust will eventually face retribution, and it is indeed satisfying. He was choked by my words, furious, yet feeling guilty, and could say no more. Liang Jian welcomed Zhao Lingyi into his residence, but this time he did not insist on giving her the title of a legitimate wife. If she were merely a concubine, the Liang family might have chosen to turn a blind eye. At the birthday banquet of the Liang family's matriarch, a woman arrived with a token, and her foster mother, claiming to be the legitimate child of the Liang family, switched at birth by malicious intent, and requested a blood test to confirm her identity. The Liang family's first wife turned pale, her eyes avoiding contact. The matriarch had long been dissatisfied with her, and the private discord between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had now erupted into such a scandal at such an important occasion, leaving her utterly humiliated. The wife of the second branch of the Liang family, never one to shy away from stirring up trouble, began to fan the flames, declaring that the purity of the bloodline was crucial to the family's inheritance and that any confusion regarding lineage must be thoroughly investigated and clarified. Luo Jinyang bore a striking resemblance to Lord Liang, and from the moment the crowd caught sight of her appearance, whispers and discussions never ceased. Even Lord Liang himself seemed hesitant. The third prince and I merely sat in the guest seats, sipping tea without getting involved in the matter, and we took our leave at an appropriate time just as we were about to board the carriage. The third prince remarked with amusement, Qining truly seems destined for greatness. Had your marriage to the Liang family gone through, it would have been you caught in a dilemma now. Yet, Liang Jian happened to fall for a wandering female physician, and now it seems the two of them are truly well matched. The third prince was clearly in high spirits. The news spread throughout the capital overnight. The head of the Liang family admitted that, in order to have a male heir, she had swapped her own daughter with a son from a common family. From then on, the true daughter was left to suffer among the common folk, while the impostor enjoyed wealth and honor for half a lifetime. The mistress of the Liang family was sent to an ancient temple to practice with her hair unbound, reflecting on her mistakes in silence, never to return for the rest of her life. It is extremely difficult for a prominent family to divorce a wife, as marital ties are deeply intertwined. This was already the most dignified outcome for her. Liang Jian was also expelled from the Liang family. The matriarch of the Liang family and the head of the household felt some reluctance, but his position within the family was too awkward, holding the title of the eldest son. Others could not tolerate his presence. The day he stepped out of the Liang family's gate, Luo Jinyang was brought back to the Liang family to acknowledge his ancestral roots, a life out of place, returning to its rightful position in his previous life. Luo Jinyang never knew his true origins until his death, nor did he understand why he had incurred a fatal threat. 8. As the emperor aged, the ambitions of the third prince began to surface. He treated me even better, and when I looked in the mirror, he stood behind me, took the comb from my hand, and personally brushed my long hair. Now that the emperor has the intention to establish an heir, I hope my father-in-law can lend me a hand in court. As soon as he said this, I understood what he meant. Your Highness, rest assured, you will surely achieve your wish in the future. With such a promise from me, he was overjoyed. Over the years, he had gained some prestige in the military, but among the civil officials, he had a rather poor reputation. To ascend to the position of crown prince, he must first win over the civil officials. He received a satisfactory answer back when Liang Jian wanted his official career to go smoothly. His behavior was exactly the same as it is now. I've seen it many times, so naturally I know what he wants and what he wants to hear. Soon, the political climate among the court officials changed drastically, and they unanimously recommended the third prince as the crown prince. Even those who used to look down on him now praised him for his outstanding military achievements and noble character. The emperor's eldest son passed away, the second son indulged in pleasure, and the third prince was also a good choice. With the support of many, the third prince ascended to the position of crown prince on the day of the coronation. I wore a magnificent palace gown and stood by his side. He held my hand, smiling meaningfully. The path ahead is perilous, you shall journey with me. I met his gaze and smiled faintly, saying, naturally, on this day, I entered the Eastern Palace with him. Everyone said I was a fortunate one, as the current crown prince held great affection for me. When they mentioned the past where Liang Jian broke his promise and called off the engagement, they only treated it as a joke. Soon, I became pregnant. The crown prince was overjoyed, saying he hoped I could bear him a son. If this child is a boy, he will be the eldest grandson of the current emperor, holding a special place in his heart. I smiled and replied, that depends on whether fate allows it, but he hurriedly left, heading straight to Jing'an Temple to pray, asking heaven to ensure this child is a boy. He can go about his own business. What I want is a daughter. I want to see my daughter inherit everything I have. If a royal grandson is born, it will certainly make his position as crown prince even more secure. I understand the unease deep in his heart. After all, the current emperor favors his youngest son, and the ninth prince is the most beloved. In the previous life, it was this ninth prince who inherited the throne. Before his death, the emperor entrusted the orphan to the care of Liang Jian and his ministers, ordering them to assist with all their hearts. The third prince never even had the chance to survive until the position of crown prince. He died in that foreign rebellion. But what I want is a daughter. The daughter they look down upon is the treasure in my heart. It is said that after being driven out of the Liang family, Liang Jian lived a very hard and destitute life. Life was tough, and the couple argued constantly. He accidentally pushed Zhao Lingyi, and she lost her child. She was heartbroken and disappeared without a trace. From then on, their fate has nothing to do with me. Life and death, fortune and misfortune, poverty and wealth, are all their own karma. My goal lies at the highest point. 9 Since I became pregnant, some have advised me to take more beauties for the crown prince. I once mentioned it to him, but he refused outright. He said, you have been through a lot during your pregnancy, and as your husband, I cannot share your burden. I should spend more time with you instead of choosing more beauties. I don't need them to serve me. These words deeply touched the palace maids beside me. Leaving aside the royal family, even in ordinary wealthy households, when the mistress is pregnant, it is customary to prepare some maids for the master. With these words, he clearly became a rare good husband in the world. Despite his high status, he is considerate of his wife. The maids cast envious glances and immediately began flattering her, saying how fortunate she was. My gaze sharpened thoughtfully as I looked at the crown prince and said with a light laugh, indeed, it is my great fortune to have met someone as wonderful as your highness. Such words pleased him greatly, and he became even more adept at playing the role of the attentive and caring husband in front of everyone. The noble ladies in the capital are still gossiping in private, saying that marrying a good husband like the crown prince is the only way to make this life worthwhile. Hearing these words, I just shook my head and smiled. If one were to believe in the affection of the royal family, they would be the biggest fool. So when I stumbled upon him and Yu Hanyang having a secret rendezvous during the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet, not a single ripple stirred in my heart. I stood behind the rockery, leisurely watching him embrace Yu Hanyang as they poured out their hearts to each other. He gently comforted her. The great cause is not yet accomplished, and I still need to rely on her and her maternal family. The better I treat her, the more her family will spare no effort to support me. In the future, I will surely give you a proper status, allowing you to stand openly by my side." Yu Hanyang leaned into his embrace, her voice choked with emotion. "What if the crown princess does not allow it?" The crown prince's tone turned cold and stern. "By then, she will have no say in the matter." I watched a grand drama unfold, only emerging slowly from behind the rockery after the two of them had left. When the birds are gone, the good bow is stored away, as has always been the case since ancient times. It remains to be seen who will be the birds and who will be the good bow then. The crown prince is always overly self-assured. When I returned to the Eastern Palace, I saw him anxiously searching for me. This look of worry truly seems flawless. I slightly furrowed my brow. "Where did your highness pick up this lotus fragrance? It smells like the powder used by women." A flicker of panic flashed in his eyes, which he quickly concealed. "It must have been from passing through the lotus flower garden in the imperial garden just now." I smiled but didn't delve deeper. After 10 months of pregnancy, the time for childbirth arrived. He paced back and forth outside the house, muttering, "May heaven bless us, it must be a boy." The pain sharpened my consciousness, making every word he said crystal clear. Finally, a daughter was born, as I had wished, but his face showed too much disappointment, and he barely held her for a moment before hurriedly handing her to the wet nurse. He told me to rest well, and that he would visit me later. The maid beside me seemed to notice his attitude as well, her lips twitching, wanting to speak but hesitating. The maids gossiped in private, saying, "Daughters are of lesser value and can never compare to the dignity of sons. If a concubine gives birth to a son first in the future, the mother will be honored through her child, and I'm afraid the crown princess will have a hard time then." I happened to overhear them and ordered each to receive 20 lashes. Watching them wail in agony, I remarked casually, "My daughter will undoubtedly be of the highest nobility." From then on, no one in the Eastern Palace dared to gossip again. The old emperor was gravely ill, and with the crown prince overseeing state affairs, the burden on his shoulders grew increasingly heavy. Those restless individuals also sought to stir up trouble during this opportune moment. On New Year's Eve, the old emperor did not make an appearance. All the celebrations for the new year were presided over by the crown prince. He was busy with numerous trivial matters, and whenever he returned, he was always exhausted. Yet at such moments, I should remind him even more, "Your Highness, your brothers are becoming restless. Why not set a trap and catch them like turtles in a jar?" As my words fell, it seemed he was suddenly awakened. In the current tumultuous times at court, many of the troubles are deliberately stirred up by his brothers, aiming to overwhelm him, leaving him exhausted and struggling to cope, while they take advantage of the chaos. To act 10 days later, the palace urgently summoned the imperial physicians, who stayed by the emperor's bedside throughout the night. This undoubtedly sent a message to the outside world: the emperor is on the verge of collapse. Numerous pawns have also been placed within the Eastern Palace. Previously indulging them has now proven useful. The more messages they relay to their masters behind them, the greater their influence. That night, the fifth prince rebelled, leading his troops to attack the imperial city. He breached the city gates and advanced with unstoppable momentum, but as soon as he entered the palace lanes, all 4 gates of the imperial city were sealed shut. Countless imperial guards lined the walls, raining arrows down without mercy. The crown prince took my hand, saying nothing, yet I could see the turmoil in his eyes. His eyes gleamed with ambition and joy, the delight of imminent victory over his rivals. He had firmly secured his position as the crown prince. The other imperial sons were too young to compete with him. He had played the role of the dutiful son in front of the emperor to perfection. The moment His Majesty heard about the fifth prince's rebellion, he vomited blood and fainted. The crown prince stayed by His Majesty's bedside in the imperial bedchamber, personally attending to his medicine until he breathed his last breath. 11. He ascended the throne in accordance with the imperial edict. I also entered the imperial harem as the empress, and my daughter was granted the title of Princess Minghua. He said he would listen to the advice of his ministers and hold a grand selection to take on consorts. I wasn't jealous. Instead, I graciously agreed. Your Majesty does indeed need people to attend to you. Widely selecting consorts and expanding the royal lineage is only proper. This left no room to find fault with me, which seemed to take him by surprise. He selected beautiful women, infeft 4 consorts, and above the 4 consorts, there was also one imperial noble consort. That imperial consort happened to be an old acquaintance. She was precisely the woman I had seen behind the rockery that day. Yu Hanyang was the daughter of a censor, a background that would not typically qualify her for the position of imperial consort. However, the emperor favored her, so naturally, his wishes were followed. After being conferred the title, she came to pay her respects, presenting a delicate and graceful demeanor when alone. Her words were truly piercing. 4 years, the world has spoken of the deep affection between His Majesty and Her Majesty, yet who would have thought that the closest of couples could also be the most distant? That day, His Majesty remarked that Her Majesty's strategies and cunning surpassed even those of men on the path to the throne. Her Majesty has also personally stained her hands with blood. Her heart hardened to such an extent that even he, her closest companion, could not help but shudder. Her eyes held a provocative gleam. Other women, upon hearing their own husbands, whom they had personally supported, speak of them in such a manner behind their backs, would likely be heartbroken. But I can't. His words can't hurt me in the slightest. If he knew my true intentions, it would be more than just a chill down his spine. Yu Hanyang said such things, partly to provoke and partly to sow discord, but I finished my tea without changing my expression. She was disappointed, and the curve of her smile froze on her face. After she left, I never went to confront the emperor, as if I had never heard those words. Now that the empire is stable, the emperor no longer has any reservations. After that, he spent entire nights in the consort's palace, whispering intimately with her, even exempting her from morning greetings, publicly humiliating me. He undertook massive construction projects for her, building the stargazing tower, where they drank and reveled together. Everyone in the world thinks I am the neglected first wife, surely harboring resentment. But how could I resent him? I wish he would go even further. If he becomes even more reckless and immoral, that supreme power will gradually transfer into my hands, as he indulges in the beauty's tender embrace, growing more neglectful of affairs of state each day. Those memorials he dislikes dealing with will all be sent to the Phoenix Palace. At first, he just wanted to give it a try, but the memorials I handled on his behalf not only contained not a single mistake but were also praised by the ministers, who lauded him for his wisdom. I come from a noble family, having helped Liang Jian ascend to the position of prime minister and assisted the third prince in seizing the throne. The art of ruling is not unfamiliar to me. If given this position, I would do better than him. The beauties in the harem grew increasingly numerous, and the allure of a gentle embrace is most likely to wear down a hero's spirit. He often appeared weary and exhausted, and the matters he was unwilling to handle grew more and more. Consort Yu is with child. She has always been frail, so conceiving a child was no easy feat. He treasures this child dearly and has even made a promise to her. Consort Yu once flaunted her triumph before me, and I have recounted her exact words. The empress has only one daughter under her care. If the imperial consort gives birth to a prince, he will be named crown prince. This was the emperor's private promise to her. She was eager to see panic on my face, but instead, I congratulated her with a smile. Your Majesty, the empress, may appear calm and composed now, but deep down, you must despise me to the core. Now that things have come to this, I might as well tell you, His Majesty and I have been in love for years. It was only for the sake of the throne that he had no choice but to marry you. Her hand rested on her abdomen, her face full of smiles. If you could take my place right now, would you still need to waste so many words with me? I glanced slightly, just catching a glimpse of her momentary lapse, as this remark struck a nerve. A clown, nothing more. Since then, she rarely comes to the Fengyi Palace. She finally realized that arguing with me is meaningless. Every time she provokes me or stirs me up, all she gets is my indifference. 12. Yu Hanyang did give birth to a prince, the emperor's first son. However, she had been weak for many years, and during childbirth, there were signs of hemorrhage. The imperial physician had exhausted all efforts to barely save her. But her body was too severely damaged, and she ultimately did not survive that month. The emperor was inconsolable and ceased court sessions for many days. He sat listlessly in her chambers every day, clutching her old garments, tightly shut the doors, and ignored everyone. The ministers, with urgent political matters, could only come to me for guidance on how to handle them. He issued an edict to make her son the crown prince, a baby still in swaddling clothes, hastily appointed as the crown prince. But the imperial physician said that Yu Hanyang had a difficult labor that day, and the crown prince was born weak, likely unable to grow up smoothly, possibly not living past the age of 10. These words, he dared not speak to the emperor, since the imperial physician dared not speak. Then the emperor need not know. Let him believe that his crown prince is a healthy child. He could not bear to hear the remonstrances of his ministers, yet he insisted on posthumously conferring the title of empress upon her. What he could not give her while she was alive, he was now determined to bestow upon her. The harem was abuzz with gossip about this, but I did not object. Instead, I helped him quell the rumors. He knew I handled matters with discretion, so he entrusted me with an increasing number of responsibilities. He was completely immersed in the grief of the imperial consort's passing, drinking continuously and without restraint, often getting utterly drunk. He had many worries and ate little. His appetite greatly diminished compared to before. Not long after, he developed a headache. At first, it was only a slight pain, but later it became unbearable. After the imperial physician examined him, he only said it was a cold that had entered the body, requiring careful nurturing. I noticed the physician's hesitant expression, but I didn't press him. Instead, I summoned him privately. Imperial physician, who, His Majesty is reluctant to face his illness. If you have any difficulties, you may speak to me privately. Do not provoke His Majesty's annoyance. Hearing this, imperial physician, who breathed a sigh of relief, he said that this illness can be serious or minor. If one takes good care of themselves, it remains a minor issue. But if one continues to indulge and neglects their health, it can develop into a severe headache. Wind-related illnesses are stubborn and cannot be completely cured. The cranial surgery method mentioned by ancient divine physicians is even less likely to be attempted by anyone. His Majesty detests being constrained the most, so how could he possibly rest properly? As the virtuous empress who understands his intentions, I naturally have to comply with his wishes. Whether he indulges in nightly revelries or dwells on memories of the past, I will never go against his wishes. When the imperial physician prescribed a life-prolonging and wind-expelling decoction, he refused to drink it, and I let him have his way. He became obsessed with the art of alchemy, seeking out practitioners from all corners, believing that consuming elixirs would allow him to see the consort's face and hear her voice in his dreams. I never stopped him. In just a short year, his condition worsened, with symptoms such as numbness and weakness in his limbs, as well as blurred vision. He gradually found himself unable to handle court affairs as he once did. Whenever he spent a little longer reviewing memorials, he would feel dizzy and his vision would blur. His right hand would become numb and weak, making it impossible for him to hold a brush. It wasn't until he picked up a teacup and his hand trembled uncontrollably that he realized the severity of the problem. But by then, it was already too late. The decoction prescribed by the imperial physician no longer had much effect on him. He could barely attend court each day, and after leaving, he had no energy left to handle government affairs. All of this, he could only entrust to my hands. Apart from me, he had no one he could trust. His brothers are the ones he suspects the most. His children are still young, and I am his lawful wife, who has accompanied him through the bloody storms of power struggles to this day. We have faced open and hidden dangers together, and I have shared his worries about the future, staying awake through the night. He can only trust me. He feared the loss of imperial power and the rise of powerful ministers above the throne. Now, only I can stabilize the court for him and deter the noble clans. 13. During his convalescence, all matters in the court, big or small, were decided by me. Power is the goal I pursue, and the very reason I married him. He thought he was the winner, using me and the Fu family to ascend the throne. Little did he know, he was merely a stepping stone for me to seize imperial power. Instead of supporting his lofty ambitions, it's better to replace him. On a cold winter day with heavy snow outside, his body was most vulnerable to the cold, yet I ordered someone to quietly open the window in the middle of the night. In the end, he was completely worn out. As he lay on his deathbed, barely breathing, he still called out for Han Yang. In a moment of temporary clarity before his final breath, he instructed the transfer of the throne to the crown prince. The young emperor ascended the throne, and I became the Empress Dowager. Ruling from behind the curtain, I have walked for many years and finally reached this position. But this is still not enough. The new emperor is still young and frail, sitting in the court. He dares not speak. When ministers present their memorials, he turns his gaze to me, unable to handle such situations. The imperial physician examines his pulse daily, with worry in his eyes growing heavier each day. Privately, he tells me that the new emperor may not have more than 5 years to live. 5 years is enough for me to plan. He is the puppet in my hands. As long as he remains in power, legitimacy is upheld, and the overall situation remains stable. I will use these 5 years to firmly grasp control of the entire dynasty, so that even without him in the future, the realm will not fall into chaos. To achieve this, I promoted scholars from humble backgrounds, breaking the mold to select talent and shattering the solidarity among the aristocratic families. The old and new factions check and balance each other, with all members of the imperial clan being sent far away to the borderlands. Establish the Mirror Bureau to supervise all officials and encourage mutual reporting. I have made all the preparations. My daughter asked me, "Mother, if I were a boy, could I share your worries?" The palace attendants gossip behind our backs that father doesn't like me. When I was born, father prayed for a son, and my birth disappointed him. Because of this, he neglected you and passed the crown prince title and the throne to the son of Lady Yu, posthumously elevating her to empress and making you the laughingstock of the court. I touched her face and smiled, but what I wanted was a daughter like Minghua. A daughter will also become my lifelong pride. I invited the greatest scholars of the time to teach her knowledge and the grand tutor to instruct her in the ways of a ruler. I would also personally teach her the art of imperial governance. My expectations for her have always been different from those of others. Her gaze was firm as she looked at me. "Mother, I will do better than those men. Mother believes in you." Hearing this, a bright smile also spread across her face. 14. When the young emperor passed away from illness, he was only 9 years old. I ascended to the throne with an iron fist, with no rightful claim. This path must be paved with mountains of corpses and seas of blood. The rule of kings and the pursuit of hegemony have always been this way. I am not a benevolent man, and I will not falter at this moment. In the eyes of the world, I could easily adopt an heir from the royal clan, preside over court affairs from behind a screen, hold real power, and still be the one pulling the strings from the shadows. But I refuse. I insist on sitting upright and dignified in the bright hall. 100 years from now, in the annals of history, my name will stand alongside those of past emperors. I hope future generations remember me as the empress, not as the crown princess, the empress consort, or the empress dowager. On the day of my coronation, Minghua looked up at the 12-beaded crown on my head and whispered, "Mother looks so majestic wearing it." In the future, it will also rest upon Minghua's head. I had always hoped for a daughter, so naturally, she would inherit everything from me. The path of an empress is never a one-generation legacy, and I will never let it end in a single generation, changing the heavens and the earth, reversing the universe. Yet meeting an old friend again. Everyone says Liang Jian has gone mad. He climbed the city wall, tattered and worn, standing there, shouting. I was appointed prime minister, wielding power over the world, entrusted by the late emperor with the care of the young ruler. I supported the young emperor. My merits cover the universe. My name will echo through the ages. His voice was cold and resolute, echoing from the top of the city wall. The area below the city wall was crowded with people, pointing and whispering about him. He saw me, then gave a sorrowful smile and spoke a sentence to me. What he said was, "I remember now." He remembered everything from his past life afterward. He leaped from the top of the city wall. As he fell, a relieved smile graced his face, as if he had truly found liberation. The people below watched his body plummet. Those who knew him could only sigh and say, once the pride of heaven in his early years, reduced to a street wanderer in his later life. He must have been unable to bear such a drastic fall and the immense blow, which drove him to madness. His memories held far more than just this, the high status and power of the previous life. Feel like a fleeting dream. The more one possesses in the dream, the more desperate reality becomes. In the previous life, it was he who held sway over the world and supported the young emperor. In this life, it is I who rule the world and hold the reins of power. The year Minghua came of age, she entered the Eastern Palace as its mistress. She had already acquired the dignified bearing of a crown prince, her gaze resolute as she declared, "I will help my mother safeguard this foundation, ensuring its prosperity for generations to come." After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My father is a corrupt official who bought me a husband. As long as he married into our family, he would save his wrongly imprisoned parents. This impoverished scholar was forced to marry me. Later, my father's property was confiscated. The day before my family was ruined, I drove him out and he left without looking back. Later, I worked as a wine maid in a tavern in Minzhou, while he rose to a high position and was about to marry the daughter of a minister. I wished them a perfect match and eternal unity, yet, with reddened eyes, he grabbed me and asked, "Do you have no heart?" I never thought I would ever meet Liu Shiqian again in this lifetime. The innkeeper instructed me to bring peach blossom wine to the side room, saying that the guest was an important figure from the capital and that I should serve him carefully. I had just come out of the wine cellar, washed my hands, and brought the wine over. When I entered the room, he was standing with his back to me, tall and graceful. Li Ziyue sat beside him, her face as radiant as a peach blossom, a talented scholar and a beautiful woman, like a painting. With just one glance at the background, I recognized it. I lowered my head as much as I could, hoping the hair in front of my forehead and the headscarf would cover my face. I gently placed the wine on the table in front of them from behind. As I was about to leave, someone at the table called out to me, "Miss, could you warm the wine for us?" I bowed slightly and, with my back turned to them, began warming the wine on the small stove in the room. It had been nearly 5 years since we parted, and I had become quite skilled at warming wine, just as skillfully as he used to warm wine for me before. A faint flame flickered on the small stove, and a gentle heat rose from the wine pot. Everyone at the table flattered him. This visit by Minister Liu in person is truly a blessing for our Minzhou. There is also Minister Shangshu's daughter, Miss Li. Our Minzhou fish maw is renowned throughout the world and is especially nourishing for women. Tomorrow, I will send some to the magistrate's residence. Sir and Miss Li are a perfect match, truly made for each other. The Shiqian temple in Minzhou is very efficacious. Tomorrow, I can take you and the young lady there to seek a blessing for your marriage. My hand, which was stirring the wine, paused, nearly spilling it. Liu Shiqian did not respond, and Li Ziyue shyly lowered her head. The person continued to flatter. Lord Liu is the youngest prime minister in history and has not yet married, which shows how deeply he cares for Miss Li. Liu Shiqian's expression remained unchanged. While Li Ziyue looked at him with some nervousness, the atmosphere in the room was strangely quiet. After a long while, Liu Shiqian spoke calmly. "I am already married," he continued. "It's just that she is no longer with us." Li Ziyue explained softly. Shiqian is a person of deep affection, which is why he has remained unmarried all these years. So that's the case. Minister Liu is truly a man of sentiment. Minister Liu and Miss Li are sure to be a well-matched couple in the future. Liu Shiqian did not argue back, and everyone moved on to other topics. I poured the warmed wine into small cups and, with my head lowered, placed them one by one on the table behind me. After setting the last cup in front of Liu Shiqian, I picked up the wine pot and prepared to leave the room. A man at the table raised his cup, accidentally spilling some wine, and called out to stop me. "Wait, young lady, bring me a silk handkerchief to wipe my hands." I fetched the handkerchief and lowered my head to wipe the lord's hands, but Liu Shiqian, who was standing beside him, blocked my hand. "It's just a little wine, no need to wipe it. You may go now." The lord repeatedly agreed. I hurriedly responded and rushed out, but Li Ziyue suddenly spoke up. "Wait, young lady, lift your head and let me have a look." Holding the brocade handkerchief, I hesitated to turn around and raise my head. Li Ziwa stood up to come over. I heard that the prefect has brought distinguished guests today. The food and drinks today are my humble offering to welcome and honor the prefect and the esteemed guests. A gentle voice was heard as when Yi pushed the door open and entered, bowing to everyone in the private room. He then added, "Your presence at my Yijian restaurant truly brings great honor to this humble little eatery. Miss Chu, please go and bring the best jar of peach blossom wine." He gently pushed me out. I hurried downstairs. Another wine maiden in the building had already fetched the wine and was walking towards the private room while talking to me. "Miss Chu, the proprietor has instructed that I will serve that room. Please go elsewhere." "Thank you, sister." I hurriedly ran back to the rear courtyard, but my heart, which had been racing wildly since I entered the room, still couldn't calm down. I closed the door to the wine cellar and slid down to sit on the floor. If you ask who the most hated person by this youngest prime minister in history is, it's probably me. I am his deceased wife. 7 years ago, my father was still the prime minister of the former dynasty. He held a position second only to the emperor in the capital. He was also the great corrupt official that everyone wanted to eliminate, and everyone knew that the private treasury of the prime minister's residence was comparable to the national treasury. And I was the precious daughter of the prime minister's residence, the apple of my father's eye. That year, I followed my father on an inspection tour to Jiangnan for leisure, and in Yangzhou, I met Liu Shiqian. He was 18 at the time, and his family had been teaching in private schools for generations. His parents and clansmen were imprisoned after being falsely accused of writing rebellious poetry. When I got off the carriage, he was beating the drum at the government office to appeal for justice. His figure was thin but exceptionally upright, his hands holding the drumsticks high as he struck the drum with force, again and again. Even in coarse cloth clothing, it was hard to conceal the imposing aura about him. The guard at the yamen kicked him down from the stone steps in front of the mansion, and he fell to the ground in a sorry state. I ordered someone to help him up, and with just that one glance, I could never forget him. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, his thin lips tightly pressed together, and even though the corner of his mouth was bleeding from the beating, he didn't make a sound. His downcast eyes were covered by long eyelashes, and even covered in dust and dirt, his striking beauty was hard to conceal. I took him back to the mansion and told him I could help, on the condition that he returned to the capital with me. But how could the prime minister's daughter, who could command the wind and rain in the capital, tolerate rejection? I started pestering him every day. The turning point came when he heard that many in the prison had contracted the plague, and he rushed to the government office in a hurry, and my servant told him that on the second day I met him, I had already sent someone to bring out his parents and relatives, buying a courtyard in the suburbs to settle them. His father and mother were safe and sound. He agreed to return to the capital with me after coming back from visiting the suburbs. It was only long after I married him that I found out my father had given his parents 1,000 gold, demanding that he must marry into my family. I thought I had saved his parents and helped him. Little did I know, I had actually crushed his self-esteem. During the years we were married, I gave him many expensive gifts, but he refused every one of them. He never attended social engagements in the capital, spending his days studying and practicing calligraphy in the study. Gradually, it feels as if I've become a person without emotions. Only at night, in the intimacy of the bed, his fierce gasps and silent embraces make me feel that he is still alive. From the initial joy of marriage, I slowly turned to worry and fear. It's as if he found a cage and locked himself inside. In the 3rd year of marriage, the Prime Minister's residence was raided. Box after box of treasury silver was carried out from the residence, along with cartloads of antiques, paintings, and rare treasures. The corrupt Prime Minister, shackled and in chains, was hauled away in a prison cart to the execution ground. The commoners along the road loudly cursed the corrupt official, throwing all sorts of things at the prison cart. By the time he reached the execution platform, he was already battered and bleeding. All of this, I only learned about my father's affairs after arriving in Minzhou, from the mouths of others. On the night before the family was raided, my father took the silver notes and shoved me onto a carriage heading south. The 9 branches of the family were executed, the remaining men were exiled. and the women were sold off. My father used all his connections to buy a woman from outside to take my place at the execution ground, so that I could live on. My father has always protected me well since I was young, but I am not foolish either. During those days, I already felt the unrest in the situation and had a bad premonition a few days before the house was raided. I gave Liu Shiqian a divorce letter. I told him, "You should leave." I didn't mention the possible changes and just made up some excuses to brush him off. "You're becoming more and more boring." He stopped asking and turned to leave. I think he must be happy. After all, he's free now. From then on, I had no parents, no home, and no husband. Not long after my father was executed, the current emperor rose up from among the common people and, within 3 months, overthrew the corrupt and doomed former dynasty's emperor from his throne. Thus, a new dynasty began, and Liu Shiqian, who was already full of talent, had been unable to showcase his abilities because I had imprisoned him. I don't know what he went through after he left, but when I heard about him again, he had already become a key minister who helped the emperor ascend the throne in the new dynasty, and the youngest prime minister at that. I just never expected that Li Ziyue would become the daughter of the Minister of Revenue, and she is about to marry Liu Shiqian. Li Ziyue is the daughter of the richest man in Yangzhou back then. When we went to Yangzhou, her father and the prefect treated us with great hospitality. When I was pestering Liu Shiqian, she had already been trying for months without success. Later, when I intercepted and took Liu Shiqian away midway, she must have held a grudge against me now. The two of them, one a young prime minister, the other a minister's daughter. I told myself that they, a talented scholar and a beautiful lady, were indeed a perfect match, pretending not to feel the bitterness in my heart. When Li Ziyue came to the backyard, I was fetching water to wash the wine jugs. It was early winter, the weather was cold, and the well water was icy, making my hands turn slightly red in the water. Dressed in luxurious attire, she stood in the messy backyard, looking completely out of place. She glared at me indignantly. "Xia Buan, it really is you. You're actually working as a wine maiden here." I looked at her calmly. "Miss, my name is Chu Banksia." She paced back and forth, scrutinizing me. The hairpin on her head swayed gently with her movements, shimmering brightly in the sunlight. I just feel upset inside. She didn't seem to be listening to me at all, sneering contemptuously. "Your family was raided, and you actually managed to escape. Do the people here know you're the daughter of a corrupt official? How absurd. You should be thankful that a new dynasty has taken over and doesn't hold grudges. Otherwise, if I just had my father report you, you'd be arrested and executed immediately. These hands of yours, weren't they once the most skilled at painting in the capital? Everyone said your paintings were priceless. Can you still paint like this now?" I look at my hands. I used to love painting in the study. Now, after daily labor, they have become rough and are no longer what they used to be. She continued to press aggressively. "Look at you now. You used to wear silk and satin, changing your clothes every day. Now you've fallen to such a state, the fabric of your clothes wouldn't even be used to mop the floors in my mansion. What I'm wearing is the most common cotton clothing among the common people. The fabric is coarse, but it keeps me very warm, miss. This fabric is very warm. Everyone in the common folk wears it." She laughed as if she had heard some strange news, covering her mouth. "Ha, I never thought I'd see you like this one day. Ah, you struggling, short on silver. If you beg me, I'll give you some. This hairpin on my head probably costs more than you could earn in a year working as a tavern maid here." She casually took off a hairpin from her head and threw it at my feet. "Thank you, miss, but it's not necessary." I quietly watched her. But she only grew angrier. After all, I had already fallen into destitution, yet I did not beg for mercy as she had expected. She was about to speak again when the servant came to call her. "Miss Li, Lord Liu says it's time to go." Li Ziyue gathered her imposing aura and walked out, then suddenly turned back to glare at me with a fierce warning, "Don't show up in front of Shiqian." Then she hurriedly left. I knew what she was worried about. After all, I was once married to Liu Shiqian, and she doesn't know what feelings Liu Shiqian holds for me. She wants to marry Liu Shiqian, but she doesn't dare to take the risk. After the restaurant closed, there was still cleaning to be done, and by the time I got home, it was almost midnight. With the moon high in the sky, I live in a small house in the alley behind the restaurant. I didn't notice anything unusual until I lit the oil lamp and saw Liu Shiqian sitting on the couch. Seeing the light on, he picked up a folding fan from the pile on the small table beside the couch and began to play with it. It gave me quite a fright. After 5 years, looking directly at him again, I felt my whole body grow cold and stiff. He is still as handsome as the first time I saw him, but the him from 5 years ago was youthful and tender, while now he has matured a lot, exuding an oppressive aura of someone in power. His gaze was obscure and unfathomable, fixed on me for a moment before he finally spoke. "Do you have to buy wine at this hour every day?" I timidly whispered. "I can only leave after the tavern closes." Seeing that he didn't respond, I had to ask him, "Why are you in my room, sir? This is my private residence, even as the Prime Minister. You cannot trespass." He refused. He gave a strange smile and stood up. I lowered my head and said, "Please leave quickly, sir. As the Prime Minister, it wouldn't be good if the neighbors saw you." He walked up to me in a few steps, as if he had been holding back for a long time, and finally let his emotions erupt. "Don't you know why I'm here, Xia Buan?" He pressed forward step by step, and I retreated step by step until my back was against the wooden door. "All these years, you were clearly alive, yet you changed your name, fled to the south, and no one could find you. You're truly something." I didn't look up. My voice was very low. "You should know that the Prime Minister's residence has been raided. My entire family is gone. My father exhausted all means just to get me out alone. I am no longer that young lady from the Prime Minister's residence." He grabbed my wrist, his grip so strong it hurt. "Why didn't you come to me? What? Do you think I'm too poor and powerless to support you? Why is life so destitute? Didn't your father leave you any money?" I hunched my shoulders and remained silent. "Or do you think I'm just too dull, and even in poverty, you don't want to be with someone as boring as me?" That's not it. That's not it. I just don't know what I would do if I went back. My whole family is dead. And it seems like I should seek revenge, but my father was a truly corrupt official. No matter how much he loved me, it doesn't change the fact that he was a corrupt official traveling south from the capital. That period was the end of the previous dynasty. Along the way, I saw starving corpses everywhere, refugees displaced, and the common people all cursing the heavy burden of taxes and the cruelty of the officials. It was a scene I had never witnessed in my first 18 years. The fine wines and silks my father gave me were built upon the suffering of these people. Whom should I hate? Whom should I seek revenge against? My father gave me a very large sum of money, enough for me to live comfortably for the rest of my life, but I can no longer spend that money. After witnessing the suffering of the common people, those banknotes look to me like blood-stained notes. They are stained with the blood of the people, and with my father's blood I traveled around, giving alms and saving lives. I donated medicine to clinics, food to charity kitchens, and funds to the rebel army. By the time I arrived in Minzhou, I was already penniless, but how could I possibly say these things to Liu Shiqian? After all, he was once the husband my father bought for me at the cost of 1,000 gold. I looked up at him and said, "You're about to get married. I wish you a perfect match and eternal unity of hearts." I sincerely wished him well, for he deserved the most beautiful love in the world. Liu Shiqian gripped my hand even tighter, as if trying to break it. His eyes were bloodshot, and he gritted his teeth as he asked, "After 5 years apart, is this all you have to say to me, Xia Buan? Do you have no heart?" I whispered softly. "Liu Shiqian, I'm getting married too. Due to the Prime Minister's personal visit, a banquet will be held at the prefect's residence to entertain all the officials under the jurisdiction of Minzhou." When the prefect's steward came to inform Yizhon Restaurant to supply the drinks, the restaurant was filled with many seated guests. Yizhon Restaurant is not the largest establishment in Minzhou City, so being entrusted with such an important banquet for the prefect's residence is truly a rare opportunity. Everyone in the restaurant congratulated Wen Yizhan one after another. The butler smiled as he looked at Wen Yizhan. "Master Wen, the peach blossom wine in your shop is truly exceptional and deeply loved by the Lord. The Lord has instructed Madame Chu from the establishment to stay at the prefect's residence these days to take charge of the wine arrangements for the official banquet." When Yizhan stopped me in the backyard, "Banksia, if you are unwilling, I will handle the prefect on your behalf," I sighed. Since he specifically asked for me, He is unlikely to relent. If I refuse, it might bring trouble to the tavern. It's only a few days, it should be fine. But that Liu Shiqian, I quickly stopped him. How could the Prime Minister's name be spoken so casually these days when Yijan had been running a tavern in the capital for 5 years, famous throughout the city for his peach blossom wine, during the time I was married to Liu Shiqian? I loved taking him to the tavern for a few drinks every time. Liu Shiqian would personally warm the wine for me later, when the rebel army reached the capital, when Yijan closed the tavern and left the city, traveling for several months before arriving in Minzhou. Because every time I went to the tavern in the capital, I made quite a scene. When Yizhao had long recognized me when we first met in Minzhou, I was so destitute that I didn't even have a place to stay. When Yizhao was very surprised, and upon hearing my story, he intended to give me some money. Miss Xia, I have benefited greatly from your family's patronage over the years in the capital. The money I earned from the Prime Minister's residence is already substantial. You don't need to repay me if you take this silver. There is no Prime Minister's residence anymore, nor is there a Miss Xia. I am now called Chu Banxia. If you want to help me, just give me a job. After that, I stayed at his tavern and started working as a wine maiden. When Yiji knew about my relationship with Liu Shiqian, which is why he was so nervous this time, he didn't understand the details, but from an outsider's perspective, it probably looked like a story of a spoiled Prime Minister's daughter forcing herself on a poor scholar. Now, the Prime Minister's daughter has fallen so low that she's selling wine in a tavern, while the poor scholar has risen to a high position and holds a grudge over the past humiliation. But Liu Shiqian's status is no longer what it used to be, and I can't let the tavern suffer because of me. In fact, since he stormed out of my room that night, we hadn't seen each other for several days. Now that I've been arranged to live in the mansion, it's also in a remote courtyard. Mixing and brewing wine in the mansion, without having to serve drinks or entertain guests with smiles, is much more leisurely than working in a tavern. He asked why the candles in the prefect's mansion are much brighter than the oil lamps in ordinary households at night. I sat by the table, embroidering a silk handkerchief by the light of the fire, and my eyes did not feel as dry and uncomfortable as usual. The next day, I needed to deliver the newly embroidered silk handkerchiefs to the embroidery workshop, but it had been raining since morning, starting at sunrise and continuing without pause until nearly noon. Today was the agreed-upon delivery day with the workshop, and it could not be delayed. I took an umbrella and left the alley through the back door of the prefect's residence. There was some standing water on the road, and as I left the alley, the rain grew heavier, making the path muddy and slippery. I stepped into a puddle, stumbled, and fell forward, clutching the brocade handkerchief tightly in my arms. I used my other hand to brace myself against the ground. The rough gravel on the ground scraped my palm, but the bundle of brocade handkerchiefs in my arms remained untouched by the muddy water, thankfully. Otherwise, all the time spent these days would have been wasted. The umbrella had already fallen to the ground and gotten wet. A large umbrella was held over my head, and I was helped to my feet. Liu Shiqian looked at me with some anger. We had already left a distance from the back door of the magistrate's residence, and I didn't know when he had started following me. I held the brocade handkerchief tightly with one hand and tried to hide the other. His eyes were slightly red. Let's go back to the residence and clean the wound. I shook my head. The embroidery workshop is just around the corner. I need to deliver the embroidery cloth today. I'll take you there. When we arrived at the embroidery workshop, even though I had wrapped the brocade handkerchief as tightly as possible, the outermost layers inevitably got wet. Shopkeeper, since this brocade handkerchief is wet, there's no need to pay for it. The shopkeeper is a businessman with shrewd eyes. Liu Shiqian, who came with me, though I don't know his exact status, was dressed in brocade robes that appeared understated. However, as the owner of an embroidery workshop, I could tell at a glance that the fabric was of the highest quality. He waved his hand with a smile. No need, Madam Chu, let's settle the bill at the original price. Back at the prefect's residence, he followed me into the cramped little room where I was staying, watching me fetch water to wash my hands. He remained silent for a long time. I didn't want to have any more dealings with him, so I forced myself not to look at him. I dried my hands and was about to leave when he grabbed my arm. You need to apply medicine. I smiled. Why bother with medicine for such a minor injury? Over the past 5 years, I've endured far worse wounds than this. A servant came in to deliver the medicine, and I had no idea when he had given the order. I was feeling a bit annoyed. What if the servant tells Li Ziyue about this? Liu Shiqian's voice was calm. Do you still care what others think? Although I am of humble status, I do not wish to ruin someone else's good marriage. He pulled me to sit down and carefully applied medicine to my hand. In the past, you would cry over the slightest injury. Today, your entire palm is wounded, yet you dare not shed a tear. Indeed, 5 years ago, if I suffered even a minor injury, the entire Prime Minister's residence would have been in an uproar. Now, what right do I have to cry? Only after carefully bandaging me did he look at me and say, I have no intention of marrying Li Ziyue. I brought her to Minzhou because I'm investigating her father for embezzlement. I was stunned for a moment. Is this something that can be told to me so casually? You shouldn't be telling me these things. His words were ambiguous. With you, there's nothing I can't say. Moreover, I've never married in the capital. Having such an identity by my side can save a lot of trouble. He casually fiddled with my embroidery frame, which held scattered needles, threads, and fabric. You're a wine seller, a fan painter, and now you're embroidering silk handkerchiefs. Why are you so short on money? How could the wages I give you for warming a cup of wine not be enough for your living expenses? My tone was stiff. Who would ever think they have too much money? Liu Shiqian didn't let go of my hand. All right, then tell me more. You said you're getting married. I had someone ask at the tavern, and Lady Chu has no engagement. Tell me who that person is, and when are you two getting married? I remained silent. He, however, laughed and pulled me closer by my wrist. What, can't you speak? And since you're about to marry someone else, why are you still wearing this? He lifted my sleeve, revealing a lucky cord with a small jade pendant attached. The jade pendant was carved with a tiny character 4WN. Because of the passage of time, the red cord has faded and darkened. This is the bracelet he gave me on our wedding day after I brought him back to the capital. His demeanor remained very calm, respectful toward my parents but not subservient. As a high-ranking official, my father had some reservations about this, worrying that Liu Shiqian might harbor ulterior motives in the future. So, like raising a pet, my father also clipped his wings. I didn't understand these things before, but in recent years, as I've stepped out of the inner chambers, I've slowly come to realize them. He must have felt deeply humiliated during those years, but I failed to grasp his situation and feelings. Instead, I pestered him every day with food, drink, and entertainment, unaware that his ambitions lay far beyond such things. He doesn't accept the expensive gifts I give him, and rarely wears those luxurious clothes except when going out on our wedding day. He was unusually happy in the capital, drank the nuptial wine, and his eyes sparkled as he looked at me. Actually, he isn't very good at drinking alcohol. After a few cups, his face turns red and he gets drunk. Liu Shiqian took out a pair of auspicious cords from his chest, each adorned with a jade pendant, one engraved with WN and the other with Sh. He blushed, slipped the auspicious cord onto my wrist, and kissed me. This is a peace knot, Buan. From now on, I will surely protect you and keep you safe for life. How could he not know his father's worries? Although he never showed it in front of his parents, his heart was as clear as a mirror. I think he must have liked me back then. That jade pendant was carved by his own hands, clumsily, but now our roles have reversed. He is dressed in fine clothes and adorned with many expensive accessories, while I am dressed in simple attire, without even a single piece of jewelry. Thinking of this, the bitterness in my heart swelled more and more, and my eyes began to redden. Liu Shiqian gently held me in his arms. It's not too late. Do you remember what day it is today? Of course I remember. The 16th day of the 12th lunar month. It is the day of my marriage to him. He took out another pair of auspicious cords from his embrace, with jade pendants that were even more exquisite, and the engraving craftsmanship was much finer. I promised to keep you safe. See, after years of practice, my skills have improved, haven't they? I struggled free from his embrace. I shouldn't have accepted your gift, Lord Liu. If you still have feelings for me in your heart, why are you being so distant with me? Liu Shiqian's tone was somewhat agitated. Come back to the capital with me. I'm not going. You should. Before he could finish speaking, the door was pushed open. Lord Liu, why are you holding my fiancé's hand? When Yijan pushed the door open and entered, Liu Shiqian froze, the auspicious rope in his hand falling to the ground. He looked displeased. She is my wife. When Yijan smiled gently, her name is Chu Banxia, she is my betrothed. May I ask what your wife's name is? Lord Liu. Liu Shiqian's face turned red and then pale. That's right, Xia Buan's household registration had been destroyed when her father was executed. I am now Chu Banxia. Even if he uses his official authority to pressure others, Chu Banxia is not his wife in the end. Liu Shiqian stormed off in anger. I bowed to Wen Yijan. Brother Yijan, thank you. He smiled bitterly. Banxia, you know I have my own selfish motives too. Over the years in Minzhou, I wasn't unaware of Wen Yijan's feelings for me. He had expressed his feelings to me several times, but I always pretended not to know. It's just that this time, I asked him to pretend to be my fiancé to deal with Liu Shiqian, who will be staying in Minzhou for a while. I have no romantic feelings for him. In the 5 years I've been in Minzhou, I've only considered him a friend. I appreciate his help, and that's all. He took half a step forward. Banxia, I can protect you, at least in Minzhou. You know my feelings for you. He left you when you were down and out, and now he's back. Who knows what his reasons are? Brother Yijan, I understand, and I thank you for today. I'm afraid you might go back to that cutthroat place. Times have changed. I'm just worried. I know he was worried about how I would face those from my past if I really returned to the capital. A prime minister's daughter who faked her death would surely have a hard time after the new year. Liu Shiqian set off for the capital, and I still went with him. A few days before our return, he came to see me and got straight to the point. I paid the money on your behalf and will continue to support that child. He actually went and investigated me. Back then, my father spent a considerable amount of silver to arrange for a terminally ill woman from another family to take my place at the execution ground. The woman agreed to go to the guillotine with only one request: to help raise her son and support him in pursuing education and achieving scholarly honors. Only later did I find out that the middleman had pocketed all the silver, and that farming family never received a single coin over the years. I've tried my best to earn more silver, all for the sake of being able to afford that child's tuition at the private school. Liu Shiqian did all this for me, and I just felt powerless, still having to rely on him. In the end, he took out another pair of jade pendants, and as soon as he saw me, he couldn't hold back his tears. That his father and mother's jade pendant. They had a pair of dragon and phoenix jade pendants, which they always wore close to their bodies. After father was executed, I went to the desolate mountain burial ground to search for their remains. I have already buried them, and their memorial tablets are in the ancestral hall of the Prime Minister's residence. It's not too late. Come back to the capital with me. Throughout all those years of marriage, he had never called my father Dad, but now, he was calling him Dad. I agreed. I should go back to pay respects to my parents. Liu Shiqian, however, did not look very happy. He smiled bitterly. Back then, you spent money for me, and now it's my turn to spend money for you. Back then, I returned to the capital with you because of my parents, and now I can only force you to return to the capital because of your parents. He, just as I had forced him back then, used my parents to force me to go back with him. The roles have reversed, and now I understand how it felt back then. He had also unwillingly come to the capital. Now it's my turn. Returning to the capital, I moved into the Prime Minister's residence. The Prime Minister's residence was built on the former site of the previous dynasty's mansion, the very estate I had lived in for 18 years. Cheng 1111, the second daughter of the capital's largest painting studio, was my closest female companion during my earlier days in the capital. Now, her elder brother has entered the Hanlin Academy and become a Hanlin scholar. 1111 was already married, and just a few days after I returned to the capital, she came to see me. As soon as she saw me, she hugged me with tears in her eyes. I teased her, "You're already a married woman. Why are you crying like a child? Xia Buan, how could you be alive and not send me a message?" I looked down at my toes. After some thought, I decided to speak the words I've held in my heart all these years. 1111. For the first decade or so of my life, I lived in the exquisite world my father created for me. I never even suffered an injury. But with such a major upheaval in the Prime Minister's residence, I feel as though my life has lost all hope. Sometimes I think, since my family is already gone, why should I continue living alone in this world? Yet, I don't have the courage to end my life. Father went to such great lengths to keep me alive. If I were to die like this, how could I face him? He must have wanted me to live happily. But I can't return to the capital, and I can no longer be Xia Buan. 1111 sighed. During the time right after the Prime Minister's residence fell into misfortune, Liu Shiqian went to dig through the mountain of corpses. He went to the desolate mountain burial ground, searching day after day for your parents' remains. In the middle of the night, he came knocking on the gate of my Cheng residence and entrusted me with the task of burying your parents. 1111 glanced at my expression and continued, you know, he had always been somewhat afraid of your parents. The night before the Prime Minister's residence was raided, perhaps having heard some rumors, he pleaded for a long time at the gate to see you. Your father's servant told him to leave, saying that you had long grown tired of him. He sat at the door all night, and the next morning, as soon as the sky began to lighten, the people who came to confiscate the property arrived. He went mad, trying to rush inside. It was my brother who held him back firmly outside. At that time, I thought he had gone mad. Only now do I realize that he was also at the execution ground that day. He could tell that it wasn't you. He was certain you hadn't died. He told me that with turmoil everywhere, he was going to join the uprising. Looking back now, perhaps he felt that if the situation stabilized, you would be able to live a better life. I know, in truth, it was because he understood that only by gaining power and influence could he find the person he wanted and protect those he wished to shield. Why can't he find you? I smiled bitterly. When my father sent me away, he gave me a household registration. 10 years ago, he had already created an identity for me, leaving a way out, a young lady born and raised in the farthest Minzhou, Chubanxia. From that day on, there was no Xia Buan in the world, only Chubanxia. How could he possibly find me? I just don't understand. I thought Liu Shiqian left happily, feeling liberated. I once saw letters he exchanged with his old friends from Yangzhou, in which he wrote, "It is a great regret that I cannot fulfill my ambitions in this lifetime." I gave him the divorce papers, and he took them and left. As if there wasn't a trace of attachment. But why did he come back to the Prime Minister's residence to look for me? After 5 years apart, Cheng 1111 dragged me along to drink ourselves into a stupor. From the days of climbing trees and catching fish together in our childhood, she cried all the way through the years we were separated as adults. It wasn't until the hour of high that 1111's husband came to the estate to take her home. Wine is truly a wonderful thing. Drinking too much can make you forget the troubles of these years. When Liu Shiqian arrived, I was sitting on the stone steps, holding a wine pot, drowsy and half asleep. Not too late, he crouched in front of me, gently pinching my cheek. This was an action he often did to me in those years. My tears fell silently. Liu Shiqian, I'm really so tired. Liu Shiqian was clearly panicked and pulled me into his embrace. I only felt an immense sense of grievance in my heart. The bed I sleep on is so hard. Woo-woo, I really miss my soft bed and that brocade cloud quilt. My hands hurt so much from brewing peach blossom wine in the winter. After brewing, I couldn't even hold a brush to paint. I'm so tired of having to work every day. For 5 years, I haven't had a single day off. It's been so long since I've had a pretty dress. I've almost forgotten how old I am. I cried bitterly, and Liu Shiqian held me gently, comforting me. He scooped me up into his arms. I stared at him, as if we had just gotten married. This is my handsome husband. I pulled down his neck and kissed him. I've wanted to do this for a long time. I've really missed him for years. I used to love sneaking kisses when he least expected it, and every time his ears would turn red. But today, why is his face so flushed too? Liu Shiqian was momentarily stunned, then held me even tighter, kissing me back with wild intensity. Who am I? Buan. You are my husband. Like dry wood meeting a fierce fire, it ignited instantly the moment my back hit the bed. The candlelight in the room flickered and went out. I felt as though I was repeatedly lifted to the clouds, only to fall again. The bed curtains danced lightly, a night of spring's passion. Opening my eyes again, the sun was already high in the sky, and I felt a headache coming on. Before I could even think about the events of last night, a cold voice reached my ears. "You're awake. Come and have your meal. The water for washing your face is ready." Liu Shiqian brought over my clothes, just as he had done all those years. Yesterday, although I had been drinking, I wasn't so drunk that I couldn't remember anything. Last night, I was the one who made the first move. We are already divorced, so doing this is truly inappropriate. It's one thing for me to indulge while drunk, but he has always been the one who values propriety the most. As if sensing my regret, Liu Shiqian pulled me into his embrace. "It's not too late. We never divorced." I tore up the divorce papers the day I left. I looked up at him in surprise. I thought he had long wanted a divorce and never imagined he would do this. He helped me change my clothes, then took me to have a meal, carefully picking out the fish bones for me. Just like before, he always carefully picks out the fish bones for me. "You used to love painting the most, and your paintings were quite famous in the capital. In Minzhou, I saw you painting on folding fans for others. Surely, you still enjoy it, don't you? I've already spoken with Boss Cheng. How about you continue painting from now on?" It turned out he had seen the folding fan in my room that day. I couldn't afford good paper, nor could I afford good brushes and ink. Moreover, I looked down at my hands. Years of labor had left my fingers red and swollen, with joints even slightly deformed. I could still paint simple folding fans, but it had been a long, long time since I had created the kind of paintings I used to make. "No, I haven't painted in a long time." Liu Shiqian held my hand tightly, rubbing the calluses that had formed over the years, his eyes slightly red. "Actually, I've already paid my respects to my parents. I'm planning to return to Minzhou." Liu Shiqian led me to the study, which was unexpectedly filled with my old paintings, and the finest brushes, ink, paper, and inkstones were all laid out on the table. He didn't speak, but pulled me to sit in front of the desk, accompanying me as I painted stroke by stroke. At this moment, it truly felt like we had returned to the past. I was painting, and he was quietly studying by my side. I had thought Liu Shiqian would keep me confined in his residence and had already started planning my escape, but he sent me to the Cheng residence. I shook my head with a smile. "It's not too late. I don't want you to appear without a clear identity. Xia Buan is considered gone in the eyes of the world, but you can use the identity of Chu Banxia to stand tall in the capital and become the most admired young lady in the city." He looked at me. "Buan, don't run away anymore. Wherever you go, I will follow you." I settled into the Cheng residence as cousin 1111. The princess sent out invitations for her birthday banquet, and surprisingly, the invitation included me as well. It was likely due to the recent rumors circulating in the capital. The young Prime Minister Liu had fallen in love with the cousin of the Hanlin academician Cheng. The banquet was filled with nobles, with the princess seated in the highest position. I sat with 1111 in the most remote corner. Many noble ladies showcased their talents, and Li Ziyue even painted a splendid portrait of a court lady on the spot, earning the princess's admiration. Li Ziyue raised her chin slightly and bowed in gratitude. "Thank you for your praise, Your Highness. However, I have heard that the young lady from the Cheng family is also exceptionally skilled in painting. I wonder if she might grace us with a demonstration." She looked at me with a provocative gaze. 1111 was about to stand up and retort, but I stopped her. Li Ziyue simply wanted to see me make a fool of myself at the banquet. She had seen my hands in Minzhou, swollen, rough, and stiff-jointed, and was certain that my painting skills had deteriorated. I glanced at Liu Shiqian from a distance. He took a sip of wine and met my eyes. I stood up and walked to the center of the hall to bow. "Your Highness, my painting skills are poor. I fear I may spoil Your Highness's enjoyment." Before the princess could speak, Li Ziyue sneered. "Ha! Could it be that Miss Cheng is unwilling to offer her blessings for the princess's birthday? But with your unsightly hands, it would indeed dampen the mood." Everyone looked at my hands. There was no delicate, smooth skin, only reddened calluses. 1111 angrily stood up. "What does my hand have to do with my painting skills? You're just afraid of being outshone by Banxia." 1111 is quick-tempered and easily falls into traps. Fearing she might speak without restraint, I bowed in return. "Your Highness, I am willing to paint for you." With brush, ink, paper, and inkstone all prepared, I picked up the brush and began to paint. At first, there were murmurs of discussion all around, but as the painting gradually unfolded, the voices of discussion grew quieter until there was complete silence. What I painted was none other than the famous work 100 Birds Paying Homage to the Phoenix, the masterpiece that made the talented daughter of the capital and the Prime Minister's daughter famous 7 years ago. This painting had long been destroyed during the raid on the Prime Minister's residence. The maid mounted the painting on a wooden frame and displayed it to the crowd, prompting whispers to arise. Compared to Li Ziyue's ordinary painting of a court lady, the difference was immediately clear. These past few days, Liu Shiqian has been accompanying me in practicing my painting skills. I never expected to showcase them today. Miss Li's painting is more fitting for the occasion, echoing the renowned 100 Battles painting by the Prime Minister. Indeed, the cousin's painting still lacks a bit of artistic conception. There were still many people who, because of Liu Shiqian's influence, flattered Li Ziyue. The princess sat upright above, smiling lightly. What does Minister Liu think? I believe that Miss Cheng's painting All Birds Paying Homage to the Phoenix demonstrates superior technique, symbolizing the princess soaring through the 9 heavens like a phoenix. It is truly a breathtaking masterpiece. Upon hearing this, Li Ziyue's expression turned alternately red and pale. Liu Shiqian's meaning was already made clear. The princess laughed heartily. Indeed, I find Miss Cheng's paintings more to my liking. After the banquet, Li Ziyue cornered me outside the palace gate by the carriage. Xia Buan, how much longer are you going to cling to Shiqian? I looked at her coldly. She was angered by my gaze, and seeing that I remained silent, she grew even more furious. Don't you know he is going to marry me? Do you have any idea how insecure he felt during all those years he was married to you? You knew nothing about his ideals and ambitions, treating him like a plaything. And now, do you want to become his plaything? Her words were harsh, deliberately aimed at hitting where it hurt. I didn't want to say much to her here, but when she said Liu Shiqian was like a plaything, she really struck a nerve. I shot her a sharp glare. Li Ziyue, what gives you the right to ask me that? Li Ziyue froze. He has no marriage contract with you. He just never clarified it. Did that scene at the palace banquet not shatter your illusions? She felt somewhat embarrassed, her tone growing weaker. Xia Buan, you've already had him. Back in Yangju, I was the one who noticed him first. Shouldn't you let him be with me now? I sneered in disdain. You like him, it's you who likes him. So you had his parents falsely accused and imprisoned, trying to make him dependent on you. Is that it? Li Ziyue's face instantly lost all color. I may have fallen on hard times, but that doesn't mean I haven't investigated what happened back then. My gaze toward her was cold and penetrating. Back in Yangju, when I brought Liu Shiqi into the magistrate's residence, you stopped me at the gate and asked me a question. Do you not remember what you said? You ask me, just because she's the Prime Minister's daughter, does that mean she can take by force? Clearly, he should be the one begging you. So why am I stepping in? Li Ziyue insisted stubbornly. Isn't that exactly what you're doing? Taking by force? He clearly met me first. I thought something was off, so I sent someone to investigate. Wasn't it you who had someone plant the rebellious poems among Liu Shiqian's parents' books in the private school? It wasn't me. Your family is the wealthiest in Yangju, spending money like water and wielding immense power. When you saw Liu Shiqian taken away by me, you spread a plague in the prison. You forced him to turn against me, but you never expected that I had already taken his parents out. Nonsense. This has nothing to do with me. I personally gathered all this evidence and questioned the witnesses. Do you want me to bring it all out? Li Ziyue's eyes darted nervously, and her body swayed unsteadily. Xia Buan, no, don't tell Shiqian. I can give you money, a lot of money. I can give you anything you want. Can you just let him be with me now? I remained motionless. Li Ziyue, you insulted him before, and now you're insulting me. When Li Ziyue came to pull me, please, Shiqian doesn't know anything. Don't tell him. The carriage curtain was lifted. Liu Shiqian, who had been waiting for me in the carriage, leaned out and stepped down when we left. Li Ziyue was still standing there in a daze. Liu Shiqian was not a particularly magnanimous person. Without a ruthless and cunning nature, how could he have risen to the position of Prime Minister? He hated those who had framed his parents back then. I don't know how much he had uncovered, but it's unlikely he knew nothing at all. Now that this matter has been exposed, I'm afraid Li Ziyu will never dare to see him again. Inside the carriage, the atmosphere was somewhat tense. I looked at him for a long time. Are you okay? He has always been troubled by his parents' affairs. Now that he has discovered that his parents suffered because of him, he must be feeling terrible. Inside, it's fine. I had my suspicions about her before. After investigating her father for so long, I had already noticed some clues. Besides, today I submitted a memorial regarding Minister Li's corruption in selling official positions. Their family's days of comfort are nearly over. So Lord Liu is also someone who holds a grudge. Li Ziyu got what she deserved. It's time for her to taste the bitterness of being trampled underfoot. I clenched my fists angrily. Liu Shiqian held my fists and chuckled. Today, you're just like before, unwilling to yield, fighting back with all your might. In the past, I was the most dazzling young lady in the capital. How could I ever bow and bend to others? I am truly happy today. It's been a long time since I felt this exhilarated. All these years, I've constantly been criticized by others. I never realized how difficult it is to endure without status. Not exactly. At the palace banquet today, everyone there held a higher status than you. Yet, you won them over with your painting skills. I looked up at him. I'm sorry, Liu Shiqian. He looked at me deeply. Liu Shiqian, I'm sorry. In the past, I trapped your self-esteem. Don't believe Li Ziyu's words. I never treated you as a plaything. I know, those years when you became increasingly silent. I was truly worried about you. Liu Shiqian held me tightly. It's my fault, but it's not too late. I have never been trapped by you. After marrying you, my father wanted me to enter officialdom, but I knew about the things he had done. And I didn't want to be complicit with him, but he is your father, and you love and respect him. I didn't know how much you were aware of his actions. I could only protect you in my own way. He held me tighter, as if afraid I would disappear if he let go. I thought I could have it both ways. Although I was in the Prime Minister's residence, I was constantly maneuvering outside. The current emperor is from the same village as me in Yangju. I knew he had great ambitions and would eventually rebel. I maneuvered among them, hoping to protect your father after the new dynasty was established. Warm liquid flowed into my collar. I just never expected that the desperate old emperor would kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. He raided the Prime Minister's residence ahead of time to replenish the national treasury, barely clinging to life. On the day you told me to leave, I was actually going out to meet the emperor, but by the time I returned, I could no longer find you. It's not too late. It was I who failed to protect you, who failed to protect father. I hugged him back, never imagining that the truth behind it all was so full of twists and turns. But in your letter to an old friend, you said you were unable to realize your ambitions and deeply regretted it. Liu Shiqian held my shoulders, his eyes bloodshot. He seemed to think for a moment before remembering. That was a letter between me and His Majesty. I told him that after entering the capital, I only felt the court was corrupt and unfit for service. It was after that he resolved to start the uprising. It's not too late. Is it because of that letter that you're making me leave? I felt a bit awkward and lowered my head. Isn't it because I'm boring? I was stunned, only then remembering that when I gave him the divorce letter, I told him, you're becoming more and more boring. After saying this, he turned and left. He said quietly, I don't know the pastimes of the gentleman in the capital. I can't play polo, I can't play the qin. All I do every day is read books. I thought you were tired of me. I regretted leaving that day, but I was also afraid that if you saw me every day, you would grow to dislike me. So that's what he thought. He had taken my hastily made-up excuse seriously. I wanted to open my mouth to explain, but he continued, even if you find me boring, I still want to be by your side every day. I can play polo now, I can play the zither, and I won't be so dull in the future. He hugged me again. I just want to stay by your side forever. I held his face, looking into his reddened eyes. That's a lie, Liu Shiqian, I said, word by word. I know my father has his issues, but he is my father. I cannot abandon him. But you have ideals and ambitions. I don't want you to be trapped by me and dragged down by the Prime Minister's residence. I'm not trapped, but I was the one who forced you to come back. he sighed softly. If I had no feelings for you, why would I have followed you? Liziua pursued me for so long, yet she never even touched the hem of my robe. It turns out all those years, we both mistakenly believed we were a burden to each other. Why is this happening? Because of the disparity in status and the great gap in position. He thought I brought him back to the capital on a whim and, having lost interest, no longer wanted to see him. I thought he came because I forced him, growing more despondent each day until he fell gravely ill. We both don't believe that we are actually in love. It's not too late. Why did you let Wenjian pretend to be your fiancé instead of coming with me? Because I don't want our relationship to be like this, as if I'm dependent on you. I feel the same way. Not too late. I also want to strive to be worthy of you. So, do you like me? Liu Shiqian? Of course. From the very first moment I saw you. The first time I saw you was at the entrance of the prefect's office. You gave me a handkerchief and scolded the guards for bullying the weak. From Liu Shiqian's words, I finally understood his feelings for me. He was drawn to me from the very beginning. That's why he followed me back to the magistrate's residence to settle down. That's why he agreed to my father's proposal for a matrilocal marriage. And from the start, I lured him with substantial benefits. He said he loved me during our intimate moments. He looked at me with affectionate eyes while we painted and studied together, but I always thought it was my own self-deception, my own illusion. He has always worked hard to resolve the difficulties between my father and me, striving to bridge the gap in our status. Yet, I was thinking of pushing him away at this moment. It felt as though years of hardship and struggle had finally been soothed. A gentle breeze rustled the carriage curtain in the flickering light. There were only two people who, after many years, had finally come to understand each other, and two hearts that, after many years, still remain unchanged in their original intentions, leaning on each other in the capital. There is a never-too-late private school, and the teacher at this school is a woman with exceptional painting skills. The private school specializes in teaching children to read, write, and paint. The children of noble families are sent to the palace school. The children of commoners are sent to the never-too-late private school. The teaching master says it's never too late to start learning. In the second year of the private school's establishment, the young prime minister married the school's Mr. Chu. The wedding was grand and spectacular, with a dowry of 128 loads lining the street from the school's entrance. The bride was carried from the private school in a sedan chair and married into the prime minister's residence by the prime minister, who rode a tall horse. Mr. Chu teaches with dedication, being gentle and patient with children. Minister Liu comes from the common people, understanding their hardships and being the most upright. A talented scholar and a beautiful lady, truly a perfect match. Everyone in the capital lined the streets to offer their congratulations. Inside the bridal sedan, I sat with the veil over my head, listening to the lively clamor outside. It felt as if I had returned to 7 years ago, when I married him. Although he was marrying into my family, I disagreed with my father about making him ride in a sedan and insisted that he enter the estate on horseback. Petals fluttered and scattered along the road. Liu Shiqian, just like in the past, rode a tall horse with a red flower pinned to his chest. I smiled faintly to myself while in Minzhou. I thought that in this era of peace, we should encourage education and let the common people learn to read and write. And Liu Shiqian also wanted to widely recruit talented individuals through a fair examination system, so I established private schools, and he presided over the imperial examinations. Now we have overcome obstacles, misunderstandings, ideals, and ambitions. Finally, we can stand side by side. Although there have been mistakes and regrets in the past, it's still fortunate that we still deeply love and trust each other. That is enough. That's right. I froze. I burst into loud sobs after hearing the two stories above. What are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.